everyone, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be me talking about I forgot my tea again. Well, this is a poor revival of my tea talk series. This was like what I used to call my reviews back in the day, like early back in the day. And it's basically just me holding a cup of tea talking about books that I've read, and it's a review and I spill the tea if there was any tea to spill. So this is my poor attempt at reviving it. I just forgot my tea and I'm too lazy to go make some. This is me trying to revive it. I forgot my tea, but it's fine. We have several other reviews and several other months for me to be able to have the tea there for me to drink and enjoy. But anyway, today's video is going to be the first ever review / tea talk of the year, and that is going to be on Cloaked in Shadow by Ben Alderson. This is a young adult, high fantasy novel that I am currently reading the entire series with some of my book Twitter friends. I feel like this is a common theme that I see on my channel. I'm reading this book with my group chat Twitter friends. I'm reading this with my group Twitter friends. This is a book that I'm reading with my group chat on Twitter. I finally read it with my friends TB and Maddie. I will leave their channels linked down below, as did all the ones who are also doing this kind of read along with me. This is one of Maddie's favorite series, and really, I'll explain more about this in a minute. But since this is the first book in the series, there will be no spoilers. The next subsequent reviews or currently readings that I do on the remainder of the series will have spoilers with them, because that's just kind of inevitable. That is the nature of the beast. But since this one has no spoilers, you are more than welcome to enjoy the rest of the video. So for a quick little synopsis, our main character is it's not Zachariah, it's Zacharias. So for the synopsis of the book, our main character, Zachariah, is an elf who is currently transported with his other kind of elven people to I believe it's Thessalina, this fictional kingdom, and there they kind of figure out, well, their secret comes out that they are all shifters, and there he is kind of held hostage almost to fight for their king, something that he did not sign up for. But however, he can't necessarily train with the other shifters, as he has a pretty big secret that he is keeping from literally everyone. And all he wants to do is be grumpy and be upset at the fact that his current ex-boyfriend, Peterer, is an asshole. But as the more that he kind of tries to focus on that and tries to avoid the limelight, the more he receives attention from the very amazing Prince Hadrian. And so our story begins. So for my first thoughts on this book, the only reason I know this book exists is because of my friend Maddie. So like I said in the beginning, it's one of her favorite series. And honestly, the minute that Maddie said what this book was about was that I was really surprised that it wasn't on my radar. I don't follow the self-publishing industry that closely as I used to before, but I do get updates every now and again when I Google things. So I'm really surprised that this one had never popped up on my radar before. But Maddie was so adamant on it, and literally she was trying to get the entire group chat to read it, the precious little bean. She had to explain, had these explanations, and literally all she had to say to get me to read it was, gay elves. Gay shape-shifting elves. And that's it really. That's all I needed for the book. I didn't know anything else about this book other than the fact that it's called the Dragori series. It's gay, there are elves. I'm assuming there were dragons involved because of the, what the series is called, which is Dragori. But other than that, I was all for it. So I started reading this a couple weeks ago, and now we're going to transition to the things that I did like. Basically, what I liked about this entire book was everything. I thought that the world building was really wonderfully done. You could tell there was a lot of care and thought that went into how this world looked, how it functioned, how everything worked itself out. But it also was very descriptive in terms of Zachariah's descriptions were very intense in terms of there's a lot of descriptions, a lot of a lot of explanation, but you didn't lose a lot of imagination. If that makes sense, because I feel like sometimes authors will leave out too much descriptions and then kind of let you picture it, but then it's difficult, or sometimes they'll put in too much descriptions and then there's nothing left for you to really imagine and picture. So I feel like this had a really nice in-between of the two. It's a nice little marriage where I could picture the world, I could picture the characters, but it still left me enough to picture the little bits and pieces that I needed to imagine myself to be able to really embrace the world as this real fictitious world. That's an oxymoron. The characters were some of my favorite parts of this entire book. I feel like they were also, we got a lot of characters really, really fast. There's a lot of them that we get introduced to the first couple of pages or first couple of chapters, And typically that's a lot of, like I said, information, but I feel like with how vibrant and how different each character was, you knew their motivations, you knew their personalities like right away. And I never like confused one person for another. I knew exactly who was who the minute that I met them after like the first couple of bits of dialogue, just because their personalities were so vastly different. And it was really easy for me to pick up on who was who and what they did and their backstory really fast once like that they started getting developed, because of how Ben had written the entire book and how separate the characters were from their dialogue and their personalities and their everything else. The plot was also really good. I feel like it did a really good job of keeping me on my toes. There's a little bit of a mystery aspect going on like toward this middle of this book, but for the most part it was like a pretty like simple plot. We have an underdog that the prince takes on. There starts to be a little bit of a slow burn romance going on. There's some tension with the ex, and then a best friend who's like spunky and super precious kicks in. And then we get introduced to this major plot that kind of takes over the entirety of the rest of the book and the entirety of the series, I'm presuming. And we see a lot of things keep you on your toes. You are constantly guessing everything, and you can't put the book down, because not only is the plot super important, but the characters and their reactions and their like how they're developing as people and like developing as a group is also super like well done. And I was kept on my toes. I cried. I sobbed. I literally. The last 100 pages of this book were some of the most last 100 pages I've ever read before. And that's coming from like Lower Shadows, because that was a stressful ending, let me tell you here. Super stressful as hell of an ending. Oh, there's a lot of dust going on here today. I really could not guess the ending or like where the ending was heading. And like I'm pretty sure on my Goodreads, if you look at like if there's a way for you to see my progress, you'll see me going, nope, I can't finish the book, I refuse to, like every so often. I think I'll involve the screenshots here for proof if y'all are questioning my sanity or how much I love this book. Now the romance. The romance here is a male-male romance. It is between, well, you'll probably figure it out in like the first couple pages, or so I'm not going to spoil that for you, but it is a male-male romance. It's a very slow burn male-male romance. It's like a slow burn in the sense that we don't see a lot of like physical actions going on page. I don't think they kiss until almost toward the end, or like a little like right before this really big climactic scene happens. But by then I feel like you had the feeling that they were already like together, if that makes any kind of sense at all. They were like together and like holding hands in their minds and already imagining things, and like that's all like I needed to know. Like it's like it's a satisfying slow burn where it wasn't too slow in terms of like you having to wait like the entirety of like the 3 books for it, but it wasn't a slow burn that happened too quickly. It was just like a nice little bit of information here and there, and then like at the end you're like, oh, thank God, they finally kissed, and it was so cute, and I cried a lot. I cry a lot in books, honestly, so I don't know if I should really like base you wanting to read a book because I cried in it. It was just such a good burn. And it was one of those things where like I talk about this a lot in my channel, where I love my queer stories. I love queer stories like focusing on like coming out and like all that stuff, but I'm also a huge fan of stories where queerness is like an added little bit, because this relationship could have easily been a heterosexual couple, but since like the added little queerness is like a gentle queerness where like it adds to the plot, but it's not the entirety of the plot, if that makes sense. It's very much like, I am gay, I am accepted for being gay. And I just need more fantasies in general to have these kind of stories, because like, as much as I love me a good fantastical coming out story, it's a fantasy world. This world is made up. The rules are made up. The laws and like the ideals and the cultures are made up for the most part. Some fantasy books are based off on other cultures, but like the world and how it works is made up. So like, why are you sitting here telling me that in this fantasy world, gay people aren't like normalized? They're not a normal thing. They don't. You have to come out, and there's like entire like big thing that happens. Like I read books to escape, and for once I would like to escape into a world where gay people are like normalized, and like that part of your world isn't this big coming out story, this big partially traumatic experience where you have to like figure yourself out. You just know. Like, I love me fantastical settings where people still do come out, and like I think those are also still very important. Same thing with queer stories where kids are figuring themselves out and coming out. Like I said in my other videos, those are important because every story is different. but I really would like to see more situations where queerness is normal. Like, we can have a prince that is known to be gay and no one is going to sit here and be like, oh, I can't marry him now. You know? So I really enjoyed the fact that this was that kind of book, where it was normalized and it was really something just to add to the plot and to add to kind of the complexity of this world without it being a focal point. That makes sense? And the last thing that I definitely enjoyed was Prince freaking Hadrian. I have a type in terms of like fictional men and potentially real life men where they're like snarky and really flirty and like they know it, but it works for them and like they can get under your skin in the best way possible. Bonus if they're like a reluctant leader, i.e. Nikolai from Shadow and Bone, a little bit of Hadrian, but they're really good leaders and they know that they're the people who can like lead the world and they don't want to, but they don't have a choice. So they just go with it. Oh, or Cal, or like Cal from the Red Queen. Like those are my kind of boys. Or like bonus if they're also a pirate. I just have a type, and like really the only way that type functions and works without being a complete asshole is in fictional worlds. So this is a problem for me, but that is my type, and Hadrian is my type. And I just sit here and like it doesn't help that like this book is written in first person, so we see everything through Zachariah's eyes, and Zachariah like writes Hadrian as this like amazing man, and I'm just like, yeah, Prince Hadrian. Hadrian. Like he calls him Petal, you got Petal. Oh, I'm fine. This is fine. I just love Hadrian so much, and Zach is such a precious little bean. Precious little petal, really. Moving on to things that I did not like, there are very few things, not gonna lie. And what I mean by I didn't like, I mean like things that are probably going to be expanded upon in the series and made easier to understand, because I refuse there's anything wrong with this book. The problem that I had was that the magic system, not that it wasn't like an underdeveloped magic system, but I just didn't understand how like it worked in terms of like, for you to do magic, what do you lose? Do you lose like energy, or like are you more tired? Is it something you have to develop? Or like, how do you practice this magical system? Because we do have shapeshifters and I want to know how that works. And like, because we all got to see how they transformed, but not the kind of the physical or emotional toll it takes to transform. We saw a lot of like magic and like how Zach uses his own magic, and it's magic with the CK. If for all those y'all who think it's gonna be magic with an IC, it's ICK, because I believe the author is Wiccan, so he spelled it the way that most Wiccans tend to spell magic. Yeah, that was my biggest question, was that I didn't understand the take from the magic. I saw a lot of people using magic quite freely, and like kind of like there were some struggles with it in terms of like having to like keep it buried, but not the toll that it takes of like burying your magic, of like what happens if you use too much of your magic, too little. How does that work? So I'm assuming that'll get more expanded on in the subsequent books, because this is a debut novel, it's the first book. So I'm not too surprised that the magic system is a little bit, it was a little wobbly. There we go. The magic system was a little wobbly, but it was still pretty solid for how it is. And also Zachariah as a person, like he's not too practiced in his own magic, so I don't expect that he would really have much knowledge on how his magic works and like the takes and the pulls. But I'm assuming that since he like has seen other people shapeshift and use magic around him, that it would be he would have kind of like a secondhand experience from it. But like I said, I'm sure it'll be expanded upon in the subsequent books. The other thing that I think I wasn't a huge fan of, or more so a critique, was that sometimes the wording didn't took me out. Not so much like sometimes the descriptions were very like not super modern, but in terms of like how the flow works and everything, it does sound a little bit more modernized. Like it's like yeah, it sounds a little bit more like urban fantasy kind of thing, where it's set in a world like ours, like how the wording works. But when some characters would talk, it sounds a little bit older and more in the past kind of situation. So the dialogue did take me out for a bit, but it was something that I got used to the more that I read along, so it wasn't that big of a deal to me. And like I said, I'm pretty sure this is Ben's debut novel, so I'm not going to fault him for things that are like, that come with writing more, if that makes sense, like spotting these things. But overall, 5 out of 5, 10 out of 5, 1,000 out of 5. Oh, I said 100, actually. 100 out of 5, 1,000 out of 5. Really, this book, this is such a strong debut. I believe this is his debut. I could be horribly wrong, but judging by the acknowledgements, this is his debut. Super strong. I think that he is a phenomenal writer, and I cannot wait to pick up the next 2 books in the series. Then I think there's a novella, and then whatever series that Ben has to come out with. I need a Netflix series, more spin-off books. I need Pinterest boards. Honestly, this may be being a little presumptuous, but I honestly think that the book / the entire series, I'm saying it now, is going to be in my top of 2020. And we're only in January, so you can tell how much I really love this book. But I don't know how that'll break down at the present moment. I think if that does happen and the entire series ends up on that list, it'll be like clumped together. I'm going to pull it all together into one book, so to speak, and put it on the spot. I want to say top 5, but really, with how this first book is going, I'm going to say top 2, if not top 1. So, really excited. I don't know if Ben Alderson will ever see this video, because I hope that he doesn't watch his own, he doesn't see the reviews of things. However, Ben, if you ever come across this video, ever, my good sir, I would like an arc of any future books that you have planned in the future. That was redundant. Literally, you could tell me it's about, like, moving water, and I want an arc. So, just letting you know that if you ever see this video or this little tidbit somehow, I would like an arc of any future works you have. Because if this is your debut, it's a freaking strong one. So I cannot wait to see how your writing has progressed and has, like, gotten better. Because it's just, like... So yeah, I highly recommend this book, and you'll definitely be seeing more of the series in the next few months, as well as this book in the next few months. Because, like, I'll probably not stop talking about it. Like I don't stop talking about anything else. But that is it for this video. Like I said, I had to start this year off with a nice queer book review. So if you guys have any suggestions for any books you want me to do reviews on, I have another one planned, but I don't know if that review will come out in February or in next week. It'll depend on how my schedule looks, but I think it'll probably come out February. So yeah, if you guys have any suggestions for books that you want me to review, please leave them down below. I do love getting book recommendations from literally everyone. If you guys want me to do more book reviews, I will try to leave. My Goodreads is down below, and I do have a shelf there. That's like all the TBR books that I physically own. So if you guys want a review on that and see that I haven't read it yet, feel free to DM me, leave a message leave a comment, or if you have any books you want me to read that isn't on that list and you want me to do a review on, or are currently reading, or however it works, just let me know. But until then, all my socials are down below, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful week, and I will be back on Sunday with my vlog for Siege and Storm. That's definitely coming out. So until then, I hope you guys have a great week. Bye!